Hello and welcome again to David Taylor, the American Motors Guy. Now, I was asked on a couple of comments in my videos about some of the stuff I have hanging up and how I got started in American Motors. Well, my story goes way back all the way to World War II. And some of you go, well, you ain't old enough. Okay, well, number one, it's my grandfather. Right after World War II, he used his GI Bill to go to school, even though he worked in the transportation department or the Department of the Army during World War II, working on Jeeps and trucks and things like that. He was in motor pool, I guess is the correct terminology. My wife was in the Navy, so I want to try to get things somewhat right. After World War II, my grandfather used his GI Bill, as I said, to get his certification to be a mechanic. And he started his career at C.E. Wright, and that was a Hudson dealer on the 700 block of Granby Street in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, my grandfather was there until Nash and Hudson merged and created American Motors, and actually he stayed until 1959. Well, in 1959, he was offered a job as at a Midas muffler shop and to be the manager. So my grandfather took that position, and his two young sons, Bobby Taylor, my father, and Larry Taylor, would go to work with their dad. And by the age of 13, my daddy was cutting off mufflers off of cars with a blowtorch at the age of 13. My uncle, Larry, he was the gopher and the shop cleanup guy. And that business was ran just like a family business. Well, after some time, my grandfather needed to return to the dealerships. So he ended up at a Rambler dealership with the Phillips Brothers Rambler. And they were out on Military Highway, not too far from the airport. And some of you know in that area of Conley Phillips, that's the Rambler dealership. At one time, it was Conley Lincoln Mercury. Everybody knew that. Well, as time goes on, Phillips Brothers decided they would no longer carry the Rambler line and that they were going to stick with the Lincoln Mercury lineup. Well, two gentlemen who worked at Phillips Brothers decided that they would take the Rambler line and create their own dealership. And they did, and it was Sam Vanderslice and Rick Orr created Atlantic Rambler. And they were on Military Highway, on the other end of Military Highway, near the Virginia Beach city limit sign. It was real close to Newtown Road. It is a Honda dealership now. But just to kind of tell my automotive history and how I grew up and all of that, I grew up in the dealerships. My dad worked in them. He was a mechanic. He was a new car prep, that sort of thing. So I've been around it my whole entire life. American Motors, Hudson, Nash have been in the family from the beginning that I know of, at least since World War II. Well, as we were kids, we would go to the dealership with Dad and we would play in the race car. And Atlantic AMC Jeep and Atlantic Rambler all had a race car. The very first race car they had was the Boss Javelin. And it was a quick little car, and they had a lot of fun racing at the Suffolk Dragway. And they would go to other towns like Cecil County, which is up in Maryland, I believe, and a few other of the racetracks around the area. And they had pretty good success. Well, lo and behold, the SS AMXs came out. And a lot of y'all know some of the SS AMXs, and we know some of the importance of them, like the SS AMX of Shirley Shanahan being the drag-on lady, which was an awesome, she was just flat out awesome. And then you had Pete's Patriot, which is another well-recognized SS AMX. Well, there was also another AMX, and that was AMX-1. And that was the flagship car for Atlantic AMC, or Atlantic Rambler. Now, as I said, us as kids, we would jump in this thing and we're holding on to the steering wheel and we're just going to town, just having a blast and just being kids, but also believing that we were driving that SS AMX up and down the track. And as time goes on and things happen, especially with that car sitting directly beside my dad's stall or his bay, we got to play in it quite a bit. And it was just part of our growing up, seeing that car, being around that car, seeing it load on the tow truck that they carried, which was back then it wasn't a rollback, you pulled up on it, had the 2 ramp kind of deal. But it was just cool to be around that sort of stuff. And my grandfather was a service writer, and I had a great uncle who worked in the parts department, which was Phil Taylor. And then, like I said, it was Dad worked there, and Dad had a few buddies, Charlie Denton, Dennis Fowlson, some of the great mechanics that were around there. Just some of the stuff that went on. It was a crazy place. It was like a family, and it was just like you could never imagine the fun that a kid could have at a place like that. Getting to go to rides, brand new Jeeps, getting to go for a ride in a brand spanking new car that no one else has ever even been in, that sort of thing, or just goofing off and having a good time at that dealership and around my dad's friends. Well, as I said, the SSAMX was eventually retired, and it was a shame, but it was put up for sale, and some of y'all have seen the ad, and y'all make comments about, oh wow, a 290 did that, and oh wow, that's cheap for a car. Right? You look at that ad again, and it's a double ad, but it has one photograph, and it is of AMX-1 doing a wheelie stand coming off the line, and it's listed for $6,000. If you look real close, underneath of it is another AMX for sale for $3,000. So you have to look at it close, but it's funny when people see this. Sam Vanderslice Jr. actually seen the ad and kind of had a memory of that. Well, all of that being said, there were some crazy things that's happened in my life about that car. And I owe it to my sister-in-law, Pamela Taylor. She's one of those gals who has her mind set to something. She just does everything she can to make it happen. So we love you, Pam. Thank you for what you do. Now, wasn't long after my father had passed away that AMC kind of came heavily back into my life. And like I said, it was due to her, Pam, so I want to thank her for that. Well, anyway, she had invited me, my wife, and my son out to a car show out in Easley, South Carolina, so it wasn't a very far trip for us. So we decided we'd go. And there with my brother, we were just in awe of some of the AMCs that were at the show, and seeing people talking to folks and seeing old friends. It was just an amazing trip. And I think that show happened sometime in September. And it was November when I purchased a 1969 AMC Rebel 2-door coupe SST, my baby. And thanks to my wife for supporting me in buying that purchase. But Karen, owe you a lot, so thank you. But anyway, the story of my family and American Motors doesn't end there. We continued to be in AMC. My brother he went crazy, and he's bought car after car after car after car, and he's been working hard trying to restore what he has. But he's been on the parts mission. So Bobby keep buying them, and he keeps looking, and some of the stuff he's bought, he's realized, hey, I didn't really need this stuff. So make sure you try to make it down to Petersburg for the National Convention. That will happen in June in Petersburg, Virginia. So you might want to get down there. There will be a bunch of vendors. So if you're needing some parts, it's a good place to hit. My brother said he'd be selling them cheap because he said it's got to go. All right, so let's get on with the story about me and American Motors and my family and that sort of thing. Well, as I said, my dad eventually followed my grandfather's footsteps and was working He started his career at McRae Rambler out in Portsmouth, Virginia. Things got a little tight over at McRae, and my dad had ended up going over to Phillips Brothers. And when Phillips decided that they would no longer carry the AMC line, my dad headed over to Atlantic AMC Jeep along with a few others over at Phillips Brothers. My grandfather stayed at Phillips Brothers and was a Lincoln Mercury service writer there, so he had no desire to go anywhere at the time. Well, as I said, the race car that Atlantic AMC Jeep had was well known. AMX-1 was a little hot to trot car, and they came out and they've released it in a couple of different versions, and this is the slot car version. So if you didn't know that was out there, it is out there. They are a little hard to find, but it is the slot car version, and it's the Legends of the Quarter Mile out by Auto World. So all y'all can see that if you're looking, if you're an SS collector. But it is also out just like Shirley Shanahan's SS AMX, the Drag-On Lady, and Pete's Patriot. You can also get AMX-1. So to me, that is an amazing car. That is what I remember as a child, and that's the car that I would play in. So that was a must. I had to have it. And the story goes on and on and on about my family and AMC. Sorry, y'all had to look at the back of my head with the, the hair missing and stuff. It's, look at that and it scares you a little bit. But, as I was saying, my dad was at Atlantic AMC Jeep for quite some time. And it wasn't long when Sam put the race car up for sale that he had actually put the dealership up for sale as well. And the name was changed to Metro AMC Jeep, and it stayed in the same location. It wasn't long. Dad said this is the writing on the wall, and decided that he would move, and he ended up at Hall AMC Jeep out in Virginia Beach. But Dad was there for a while, and Chesapeake was really starting to grow and become a bigger city. Instead of being a subsidiary of Norfolk, it became its own city, and it had really exploded and started to grow. Well, there's an area in Chesapeake called Greenbrier, and Greenbrier had opened up a dealership. So it was Greenbrier, Chrysler, Plymouth, AMC, Jeep, Renault, Van World. So they had quite a bit there. And my dad went to work over at Greenbrier and ended up working with Charlie Denton and Dennis Fowlson again. And we had picked up another one, which name was Jeff Foltz. Now, Jeff comes back in later in the story here in a little while and some of the things that's happened in our lives. Now, as I said, AMX-1 was sold. And me and my brother, as we had gotten older, would end up going back to work with our father from time to time just to hang out and, see him on special occasions like his birthday or whatever, because we were a lot older, going to school or had jobs, blah, blah, blah. So we would try to hang out with Dad when we had a chance. And working at that dealership, we had worked, we were making our own money, doing our own thing. And Dad had gotten his health had gotten a lot worse, so things weren't going as well, and the AMC had went out of business, and it was all Chrysler. So Dad had no more AMCs really to work on. As the time we were probably in our 20s, or we were probably in our early 20s when AMC finally went out of business, and as I said, things happen in your life. Well, AMX-1, as we said, it got sold. We never knew what happened to the car. We didn't have a clue. And then as my brother got older, someone said, hey, man, I have an AMX for sale, and it wasn't but about 8 blocks away from the house. And my brother goes to look at the car, and he's like, man, I wish I could buy it, but I really can't. Dude, I don't know what to tell you. So my brother had passed on the car. Well, Jeff Foltz, one of the gentlemen who worked with my father over at Greenbrier, was the one who ended up buying the car because he had heard the gentleman speak of the car while he was out at Suffolk Raceway. And as AMX-1, which that's the car that it was, Jeff found out what it was and how important it was. So he had put the car up for sale on NAMDRA. And some of y'all don't know what NAMDRA is, but it's the National Racing magazine that was once put out on American Motors. It was strictly all AMC stuff, but it was a national record type deal. So Jeff put the car out for sale on that, and the gentleman bought the car. Now what happened to it, no one knew. It just disappeared. It's gone forever. And then something else happened. Me and my brother I'm living in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, and my brother lives all the way out on the eastern, the Outer Banks area of North Carolina. And we're miles and miles apart, but, you know, AMC brings us together. So we ended up making the decision that we were both going to go to the Nationals in Kenosha, Wisconsin, 2014. Now we're in our 30s, late 30s, mid 30s, going on 40, whatever you want to call it. And that's how much time had gone by. AMX-1 was out of the picture. It wasn't anywhere out there to be found. Well, just before the show, AMX-1 appeared, and it appeared on eBay on an AMC deal, and it was for sale. And the car completely redone. I mean, complete restoration, nut and bolt. It was just beautiful and dream. Oh my God, I wish I won the lottery. And we wanted that car so bad. And when the price got up to over $850,000, we knew we didn't have a prayer in the world. But anyway, the car was, to us, had disappeared quickly off of eBay as fast as it had appeared. And we just like, well, that's it. We'll never know. And my sister-in-law was on a mission. As soon as the car was sought again, it was there, it was. She starts doing everything she can to contact the gentleman who owned it and wanted my brother to see it. And the gentleman just flat out said, no, I'm not. It's not what I'm doing. That's not what it's about. I have this car up for sale. So, as I said, the AMX-1 had disappeared as quickly as it had, as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared again. And that's fine. We were like, well, we'll just never see it. We will never know where it is or what have you. And it wasn't very long before the show that this showed up in our mailbox. And this is Mr. and Mrs. Riley in their garage in the possession of two SS AMXs. And lo and behold, there's AMX-1. And right in behind it is number 19, the Westbury Rambler flagship race car. Number 19, what a beautiful piece of machinery. Now the story behind the SS AMXs is Shirley Shanahan's husband, Mr. Shanahan, had a whole big hand in how those engines and things were put together and how he knew which car was the best one, so he made sure that Shirley got the number that was the best one. And I guess they had them rated. I have no idea how it was done, but these cars were given numbers. And they stopped at 50, and then the story goes that it didn't please Alaska very much, and they had to build two more. So there is a total of 52 of the SS AMXs. Now, which ones have survived? I don't know. Which ones are still around? I don't know. All I can tell you is that they are going to have a SS AMX reunion in Ohio at the AMC Race Days, I believe is the event. And I am excited. I hope I get to go because I would love to see as many of the SS AMXs appear as humanly possible. Well, as I said about things that happen in our lives, my sister-in-law was on another mission as soon as she read about the trade that had happened in that magazine. AMO had put out a huge article on the AMX trade and the kindness that went out from Mr. and Mrs. Riley. Now the story goes that the Westbury brothers, now it was no longer Westbury Rambler, it was Westbury Kia, Westbury Toyota, Westbury Chrysler, Westbury, you name the make, and they had a company. And these gentlemen had money. And they wanted their number 19 flagship race car back at their dealership to display. And they were determined to get it. And they begged and pleaded with Mr. Riley about getting that car. And Mr. Riley just finally gave in and said, okay, here's the deal. You buy me AMX-1, which is for sale right now. Then you buy me that car and I'll trade you number 19 for number 31. They agreed. And at that time when that photograph was taken, Mr. and Mrs. Riley was in possession of two SS AMXs. Now the Westbury brothers were very gracious and very forthcoming, and hey, why don't you come in for the unveil? We want you to be here. We want you to be a part of the family because it was you who made it happen. And Rick Riley and his wife came in for the unveil and the open ceremony of number 19 returning home. And Rick has been nothing but more gracious in everything that this man does. We were at the Nationals in Kenosha having a time of our lives. Have no idea what my sister-in-law had put together. And there she was. She had already put together an opportunity for us, me and my brother, to go and sit and look and video number 31 AMX-1. So we got to see the car again. Thank you, Pam, for what you did. It was an amazing trip, and my son took a video, and that's going to go right on the tail end of this little story, so you can watch that as well. It's 2 little minutes of video of this race car, and it's probably some of the most treasured video that I have, and it just brings me back to my father and the things that happened as we were kids. So it's crazy how little things bring you back to your childhood. So continue watching, but remember to like, subscribe, and make comments. And I also want to thank, I hit my very first 100 subscribers this very weekend. So thank you all. Spread the word. I hope that I can get more followers and subscribers and likes and everything else. So let me know how I'm doing. I'm sorry I rambled on a little bit too long on this video, but keep watching. Here it comes. All right. Talk to you later.
Get in my way while I'm taking a video.
You pulled outside.
Please.
Nothing.
Sit down.
I don't remember the Gwen Automotive Machine little sticker. That's coming to New York. Oh yeah. I mean, can you imagine three kids in the back of an AMX going to the racetrack every Sunday?
I know.
That's what the
Unbelievable.
Sporns did.
Unbelievable.
I don't think there's anything more priceless than them seeing it this way.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
that should be.
Rather than a show, I like this better.
Oh yeah.